Hi everyone, so this is going to be a tutorial on how to use Cronometer, which you'll be using for your dietary analysis task. So if you can just type in cronometer.com, it'll take you to this screen. Now we're going to log in using Google Classroom login details, and this makes it a lot easier because it means you don't actually have to create an account. So to do that, you just click the login button and it will ask you to connect through Google. So you click connect through Google. Now it will ask you to select your account and it will then ask for some permission as well, which doesn't show up here because I've already logged in before. It'll then take you to the home page. Now I've already added in some food, but what will happen is it will come up with a pop-up which will ask you to put in all of your details, which look like this one here. Okay, so I've put in my date of birth, I've put in my height and my weight, and then it's worked out what my BMI is, and it's also worked out what my basal metabolic rate is as well. Okay, so if we go back to the diary tab up the top here, this is today, so I've actually put in what I've had for recess and breakfast. So for breakfast, I had some yogurt and some Natvia breakfast biscuits. And then for recess, I had coffee with half a cup of milk and 1 teaspoon of sugar. So I can show you if I were to have my lunch, which at the moment I'm not going to have my lunch just yet, but we'll say that I had for lunch some pasta, and I had whole wheat pasta because I like to be, and let's say that penne is usually the whole wheat pasta that you can have, and I had a cup. So then I click 1 cup or say half a cup. Okay, so 1 cup, which is 97 grams. So then you click add serving and it'll come up here. Now with that, I had some pesto, and I had 3 teaspoons. Now I also had some cherry tomatoes with that. And I had 5 of those that I cut into halves. And I also had some spinach as well. And we'll say that I had about 85 grams. You can always change this as well. Try to be as uh, accurate as you can. Okay, so as you can see, as I'm adding in all of these, my little calorie summary bar over here is starting to increase the closer I get to my recommended daily intake of energy. So far, I burned just 1,766 calories just by existing alone. That's my basal metabolic rate. And then if I do any activity on top of that, which you can add in if you want to, but we don't really need to worry about that. We're just looking at calories consumed. So far, I've consumed 694 calories. Okay, now you need to generate 3 different graphs. The first graph that you need to generate is the recommended daily intake graph. Now, for this graph, you're required to look at the percentage of that, whether it be vitamin, mineral, or macronutrient, the percentage in comparison to your recommended daily intake. Now, this has generated my recommended daily intake based on my age and gender, so it should do the same thing for you. So at the moment, I've consumed 43% of my thiamine intake for the day. you can see that I've also consumed 386% of my vitamin A for the day. And so it'll give you, as you go through, how you're going with the amounts of vitamins and minerals that you need to consume, as well as your macronutrients. So at the moment, I've consumed 80% of the carbs that are recommended for me per day, and same with 30% of my fat and 70% of my protein. Okay, so and that's the first graph that you need to generate, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you need to open up a blank Excel booklet, and what we're going to do is we're going to put in different minerals and vitamins, or macro and micronutrients. Okay, so you can see that I've put all of my macro and micronutrients up the top here, and I've put my 3 days of my food diary. So now I'm going to start entering in the values from Cronometer into my Excel spreadsheet. So firstly, we can see that I've consumed, if this were the complete day, which it isn't because I haven't eaten dinner yet or any snacks, I have 80% of my carbohydrates consumed. So I will put in 80. Now, protein, I have consumed so far 70%. Fats, I've consumed 30%. And we keep doing that until it's complete. Okay, so you can see now that I've put in all of my values for my RDI. Now we need to graph that. So you just click and select this, and you go Insert, and we're going to do a bar graph. And I think we should just be able to click this one here. Okay, and we've got all of ours down here. Now we also need to add some elements to this graph, because at the moment there's no labels on the axes and the title is wrong. So we click up here to add chart element, and we go into axes, titles, and we click primary horizontal and primary vertical. Now we've also got title there. Okay, so axis title is RDI of macro and micronutrients. And here, this is the units, which is percentage in brackets. There's the correct unit. And we need to change this to day one food consumption in relation to RDI of macro and micronutrients. So I just fixed that up. It should just be macro and micronutrients. So here's our graph for the first graph for the RDI percentage of first day food consumption in relation to RDI of macro and micronutrients and its percentage of consumption. So you need to generate one of these for each of the 3 days that you consume for your food diary. I'm going to show you now how to create the second graph that you need. So the next graph that you need to generate is the percentage of consumption of mono unsaturated fats and saturated fats consumed compared to the total fat consumption. So here is our total fat consumption. We have 19.5 grams of fat that I have consumed today. Now you can see that of that 19.5 grams, 7.3 is mono, 7.2 is poly unsaturated, and 3.5 is saturated. Now we want to work out how much percentage of each of those fats we consume compared to the total fat consumption. So the way that we work that out is we in our formula up here, we click equals. So for monounsaturated, we had 7.3, and it's divided by the total fat consumption, which was 19.5, which equals, now if you want to convert that into a percentage, you need to put that in brackets and then times 100. Okay, so 37% of my fat consumption was monounsaturated. So for polyunsaturated, I'll do that again. 7.2 divided by the total, which is 19.5, and bracket times 100. So 37% was unsaturated, polyunsaturated. And my saturated is, again, equals bracket 3.5 divided by 19.5, which is the total, bracket times 100, 18%. Now you can round these down by clicking that one there to whole numbers. Okay, so you can see here that most of my fat is healthy fat, although I really should only be consuming 10% saturated fat. So what I'm hoping is that during the rest of the day, I'll consume more poly and monounsaturated fat, and that will turn that saturated fat level to lower. Now, to graph this, it's exactly the same as we did with this one. So we just click here and highlight it, click Insert. Now we're going to do a pie chart. So a 2D pie chart that looks like this, okay? So we can see my polyunsaturated and monounsaturated, so the keys down there, and this is day one. Now you need to change this to something that's just a little bit more detailed. So consumption of polyunsaturated and saturated fat, and its percentage of consumption. Polyunsaturated and saturated fat for day one of food diary. Okay, so it really is important that you include detailed titles so that I know exactly what this graph actually represents. So you need to do that again for all 3 days. And now we have one more graph that you need to do for all 3 days, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. All right, so the last graph that you need to generate is the percentage of energy that is derived from your macronutrients, so your carbohydrates, your fats, or lipids, and your protein. So to do that, firstly, we need to have a look at how many kilojoules you've consumed. Now, unfortunately, this only looks at calories, so we need to convert that value here, the total energy consumption. We need to convert that into kilojoules. So the way that you do that is you times it by 4.2. So 694.1 times 4.2 equals 2,915 kilojoules. Now we can start converting how many grams of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins into kilojoules of energy, and then work out the percentage. So as you should know, carbohydrates per gram equals 16 kilojoules. You should be very familiar with that, and if you're not, you need to be. Fats per gram are 37 kilojoules, and protein is 17 kilojoules per gram. So we're going to start working in our Excel document again to work out how to convert those grams of proteins, carbs, and lipids into an energy value to then work out a percentage. So bear with me, this is not hard maths, and I'm going to be taking you through it every step of the way. Okay, so we'll put it in here, and we've got fat, carbohydrates, and protein. And we've got day 1, day 2, and day 3. All right, so for fats, we had 19.5 grams of fats in total for day 1. So bracket 19.5 times 37, because it's 37 kilojoules per gram. And I forgot to put the equal sign in, which is why that's not working. Okay, so that gives you a value of 721.5 kilojoules of energy that was consumed through fat. So for carbohydrates, I'll do the same thing. We had 104 grams of carbohydrates times 16, because we have 16 kilojoules per gram, bracket, enter. So 1664 kilojoules of energy from carbohydrates. And protein, 32.2 grams times 17 kilojoules per gram, and bracket, click enter. So 547. Okay, so those are your values. Now to graph that, again, highlight, insert, and we're going to graph this one. You can either do it as a pie if you like. I would probably put it as a bar graph. But what we actually need to do first is we need to convert that into a value. So what we need to do there, to remove the equation that we just put into Excel, what you do is you just click and highlight, and you right click and you go copy, and you right click and you go paste values. So that gets rid of any equation that we had in there, and then we can start converting it into a percentage. So to do that, we go equals brackets. So here's the value of our kilojoules divided by the total, which is 2915, bracket, times 100. Okay, so 25% of my energy consumption came from fats. So we will do it for this one as well. So equals bracket our value divided by the total, which is 2915, bracket, times 100, which is 57. And we'll do the same for protein as well. So equals bracket value divided by total, 2915, bracket, times 100, equals 19%. And then we can graph that as a percentage. And you can either do it as a bar graph or as a pie chart. What I would recommend for the pie charts is actually, if we go into design, add chart elements, we want data labels in the center. And we also want a percentage, and I don't know if we're able to get that. So I'm not really sure how to put percentage in, but that's okay. But you just need to generate it like this. And again, you'll generate one of these for each day. So we'll do the same thing here. So again, just to add chart details, you can click this little plus symbol here, and you can put in data labels and a legend as well. Okay, and obviously change the title to percentage of energy derived from macronutrients from day 1 food consumption. Okay, and that way I can very easily see exactly what's going on here. And I might just move that down there. Oh. and move this, or whatever. You guys can work that out. Okay, so that's the end of the tutorial for how to enter in all of your graphs into Excel, all the equations in Excel that you're going to need to be able to do that. So if you do still have any issues, please contact me so I can walk you through the process. Thank you very much, everyone.